Welcome to Straight Talk with Billy Kay. I'm Billy Keyserling, the proud mayor of the proud city of Beaufort. I sponsor this show because I think it's very important that the citizens of Beaufort and their surrounding area know what's happening in town, know what their government is thinking, and have an opportunity to communicate with me as the mayor as well as the council. I have a website, www.mayorbilly.com. And pride myself on communicating with people and the importance of transparency in government. Throughout the past year, I have had guests who've talked about a number of things happening in the community. And today we're fortunate enough to have with us Robb Wells, who's the Tourism Division Director of the Beaufort Regional Chamber of Commerce. I say those words explicitly because for those who live in Beaufort, they know that for the last couple of years, up until a year ago, there was some concern about the Chamber versus a separate Visitors and Convention Bureau. Then there was a merged Chamber, VCB, blah, blah, blah. A year ago, I think this Chamber of Commerce basically got it straightened out. It's all internal now. Everybody's happy. They're moving in a forward direction. And a year ago, they brought in Robb Wells, who came from
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Wow. Aren't you lucky to be in Beaufort?
Very fortunate. This place is paradise.
I've not been to Knoxville. I'm sure it's very nice. Robb is, one of the things we're going to talk about later in the show is the distribution of ATAX, accommodations tax dollars, which is a ritual the city goes through, sometimes very painfully every year. But before we do that, I'd like Robb to share a little bit about some of the changes that as the Tourism Division Executive that he's made that create more transparency and initiate more collaboration among what sometimes were competing but should be collaborating forces.
Some of the first things that we wanted to bring into the fold was reaching out to those constituents that make up the tourism industry here in the area and find out a little bit more about what they desired from their, from the destination marketing organization. That was from the county level, the city level, and then here locally to the attractions, events, festivals, so forth, so on. And some of the things that we found out along the way was there was a lot of talk about we want to not only formulate the plan, but also be able to track it and be able to show that the public money is being...
Sort of marketing versus advertising?
That's correct. And they wanted it full-fledged. And so one of the things that we brought to the table was being able to do so. And tracking it throughout. So our advertising buying plan changed a little bit. Our focus became a little bit less on core brand awareness, so to speak, and more on making brand awareness the undertone, but making lead generation and metrics on both the print and online.
Lead generation means what to the people?
Well, lead generation basically is we have an opportunity to extend the advertisement. So you place an advertisement, whether it be online, in print, and the reader, the visitor, raises their hand and says, I want some more information.
So you're able to identify.
We're able to identify
who responds to the ads.
That's correct.
You can measure its effectiveness.
Exactly, and we're able to import that. So we see a lot of trends. So some of the trends that are coming back is email marketing being a part of that. Allows us to continue that conversation, allows us to extend it beyond just that first paid placement. And we found that this becomes a better antiquated way of doing so. So that what we do is we're able to make adjustments as we go along to our marketing plan. It just doesn't come locked into one buy, it becomes a process. So we talked about it, it's more of a science than just ad buying.
And that's very different because we basically were just buying ads because we thought we had something cool. Now you can know who's responding to the ads and begin to target them to the kinds of people who would come to Beaufort.
That's exactly right. I mean, our lead generation allows us to whittle down some of what they're requesting for. Some folks might want just information on destination wedding, or some folks might want information on, where can I bring a group, or better yet, where can my family afford, find a good summer vacation. And we want to be able to facilitate those as we go along, and if we can feed them what they're looking for and help them make that decision. I mean, we've answered and probably eliminated several steps that they're going to go through.
And then when you get your leads, you actually give them to the people who offer those services so they can contact
That's exactly right. We do provide. So, you know, we at that point remove it from our hands, so to speak, if you will, with a relocation. Say somebody's looking to relocate, and they relocate for a variety of reasons. You know our demographic makeup, so it could be for a second home, or it could be retirement, or it could be they're coming in for the military. We're able to pass those on to the folks that are in that industry and be able to facilitate that at a greater level than, say,
then they
tourism.
can go after them and begin to tailor-make a message, and you don't have to keep spending the money going after the same people.
That's right. We don't have to duplicate it, and it goes to the private sector. They can now facilitate it further. Our goal really here is to maintain the destination's brand, maintain its core components, but at the same time, we're to get the people to the ticket counter.
Let's talk about the brand for a minute.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me what the brand for Beaufort is? I know you have a logo, and we'll have it up on the screen.
Yeah.
But how did you go about finding it, defining it, determining it's what works?
Yeah. Well, we actually revisited, something that was conducted back in, I think, 2009 or 10.
You didn't need to do a new study?
No, there was no need for a new study. Basically, there was not. The 2009 and 2010 study indicated that most people look at this area in a certain eye. It's been rehashed over and over again from different groups and whatever. It's the same story. The story hasn't changed. We haven't all of a sudden become a jazz town, or all of a sudden become something that we're not. We're still a historic waterfront community that has a vibrant downtown that's very condensed, but we're less bulky than our neighbors to the north and south. And we captured that in our logo that is probably on the screen behind us.
And we're on an island that's surrounded by many more.
That's exactly right. And being a part of those islands, the sea islands make up what makes Beaufort unique and special. And when we started to whittle down, people started talking about this, when you condense that word, that enrich word kept coming back to the surface. And it was never fleshed out, fully. And so we re-engaged it back again, and thus the enrichment campaign is.
So let's talk about the enrichment campaign. You could be a professor sometime.
Yeah.
There are people like me and some of our viewers who need to understand.
Understand
a little more clearly.
So that life of enrichment is exactly what we all enjoy.
People
here.
come here and can enrich.
Exactly.
Enrich what?
Well, they can enrich their adventurous spirit. That want to get out there and husband, wife, or just solo, just get out on a kayak and explore the islands that you referenced earlier. They can leave from their place in Fripp, or they can leave from the waterfront or the marina and venture out. There's an enrichment that collection. Well, you and I both know that the culture that makes up Beaufort, the art walk, the art galleries that make up Bay Street, or the shopping that's throughout the city. Find yourself digging into an antique shop. I mean, that's what makes up, and that's the enrichment. People see. Do I see some growth in it? Of course. There's a health and wellness component.
Describe the difference. Well, I'll come back to that, because that's my pet project. Besides, a lot of people say discover Beaufort.
Yes.
That's about Beaufort. Your campaign seems to be about the person who might want to.
It is. It's an inner reflection. It's that what does the visitor seek when they come to a destination? It could be history. It could be culture. It could be simple relaxation. It could be a weekend getaway with girlfriends, or it could be a weekend getaway with that significant other. Mm-hmm. It could be here to see a variety of activities that are going. It could be an event or a festival that draws them back for, say, a homecoming. And that's why we seek that enrichment. It focuses on the visitor and less about the destination.
And it also shows how we complicate one of our important markets, which is Hilton Head and Bluffton.
Yeah.
They're very close to us, but it's amazing how many people from Hilton Head, Bluffton, Sun City have never even been to Beaufort.
That's correct.
When we have the Performing Arts Center, we have some of the finest restaurants in the region. We have a waterfront park, which isn't unmatched by any place in the world.
I agree.
A place for people to gather and play. It's about what we offer people. We're going to talk about healthcare, because my pet project is, as I've talked to you and I've talked to the hospital, is for us to be a destination for wellness. But right now we've got to take a break, so we'll be right back with Straight Talk with Billy Kay. Welcome back to Straight Talk with Billy Kay. Today I have with me Robb Wells, who's the Tourism Division Executive for Beaufort Regional Chamber of Commerce. Prior to the break, We talked a little bit about the brand, about Beaufort as a destination, the concept of what people can get here rather than say, come here and discover, come and enrich yourself, whether it be the outdoors, whether it be history, culture, or fine restaurants, or what have you. When it all comes down to it, there's never enough money for marketing. The way for the public who doesn't know, the structure of marketing is that there's a tax called a bed tax, and there's a hospitality tax that we all pay. And those dollars go to the state, and then they get divvied up by very complicated formulas, and they come back to the county, to the city, to the local government, and the local government then designates what's called a designated marketing organization. The chamber then, as the city's designated marketing organization, gets a certain amount of dollars. And then their city council is tasked with taking the remaining dollars, 190,000 roughly this year, and allocating that to what we would call partners with the chamber. But let's talk about the chamber budget and what you've done in the past year or two, what your board has done.
Yeah, well, one of the goals set in place was to create a kind of an open line, that semblance of this is where the money's going to be, this is where the money's going to be spent, this is how it's done, so that transparency, so to speak. And one of the things done upon my arrival was they split out the public funds, the public money, into an 85-15 designation. So the 85% of the money was spent on destination marketing organization expenses. For example, your advertising, your print collateral, your fulfillment. We operate the visitor center from some of those funds as well. And then, of course, 15% would go into the operation, in which, you know, the salaries were paid for myself, paid out of that 15%, not out of the actual public fund designation. So it really opened it up, allows for more front feature. I've done this in 2 other destinations. 85-15 is a very, very transparent and very open and forward-thinking process, and I think it's a great challenge going forward.
There were a lot of allegations about money being used for one thing and another thing and crisscrossing, and you've made that distinction.
That's right.
Put a pretty tough overhead budget on yourself. One of the things you fund, and one of the things the city actually gives you additional funding for, is Visitor Center.
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about it, where it is for those who are in Hilton Head and Bluffton.
Yeah, well, we're right here on Craven Street, where Carteret and Craven meet each other at 713. It's in the old historic Arsenal, which is a fascinating facility, fascinating building. There's a history, the story behind it is for a whole nother show. Located inside there, we have, where our visitor center is comprised of just local information, walking maps, tour guide, ticket sales. It's a one-stop shop for all things Beaufort. There's some local, some photography that some of our local photographers have put in place there, and pick up some local postcards, send to friends and neighbors. We find that most of the people, that's where the people navigate to when they're looking to start their venture into the city, that discovery.
Always go to that visitor center. I notice you have merchandise, but you have very little that actually competes with the downtown merchants.
That's right. We are not into the competition of that, or into the merchants. That's not our goal. We do try to facilitate folks that might want to send that postcard out from there, and they've got other stops on the way. One of the other things that we do have, though, is we have that Beaufort design sweetgrass basket, that Beaufort Bull Rush, which is unique and distinctive for Beaufort. It's our own personal design. We do carry that in there, a little different, but some fabulous things. But the visitor center is where we say the boots on the ground, the tourists start their venture.
You also make good use of the interior, the courtyard, because of the way that it's available for those of you who want to, for a modest fee. Rent it if you want to have a wedding, you want to have a party. Maybe I'll have my birthday party there. What do you think?
That's a good one, right? A good one. Oyster roast or something?
I don't know that I have a birthday I'm ready to celebrate.
I understand.
An oyster roast, maybe. Now, as as I said earlier, the city is tasked, the city council, upon the advice of a group of volunteers called the Tourism Development Advisory Committee. Basically solicits applications from nonprofits and organizations that sponsor festivals, fundraisers, cultural events, entertainment. They come to us, but the restriction is that the money has to be used to market to people who are outside of a 50-mile radius of Beaufort, driven by the bed tax. One of the metrics by which it's measured is the people who come and stay in hotels, but it's not just that. The Shrimp Festival, the Taste of Beaufort Festival, Lieutenant Dan Band when they came here. Habitat for Humanity has a regional barbecue competition. But one of the problems was that we found that it was the same people coming every year. They were asking for the same amount of money. We never had what they needed. We gave them something, and then we scratched our heads and said, well, if they need $50,000 and we're only giving them 20, are they really getting anything done? So a year ago, a little over a year ago, after the last process where council scratched their head and said, this is very painful because we really don't, this is the taxpayers' dollars. We're charged with investing it through these organizations. So I called what we called a tourism summit, where we brought in and invited everything from the realtors to the restaurants to the ice cream parlors to the deep fishing tournament to the golf tournaments to the bed and breakfast to everybody in Beaufort, the University, Performing Arts Center, the Arts Council, and said, let's get a picture of what Beaufort is and the whole. And let's think that if you're one festival, if you're the film festival, and you're going to do a poster or an ad campaign, why not also advertise the independent films that go year-round at the university? Let's take advantage and create partnerships. And at the end, we got buy-in. We came up with what we thought were the principal issues, which actually fit right back with that 2009-2010 study. And so after reviewing that and working with our DMO and working with the TDAC committee, we sent out solicitations for this year's investment. And we found a market change. What we found, and I'm going to let Rob talk about it a little bit, but that not only are the museum and Historic Beaufort Foundation and restaurant, let's say, working together on a joint promotion, that we have some of our destination communities who say, my gosh, people are coming to visit Beaufort, here we have a chance. And so what we're finding, and my challenge was to take $190,000 of public dollars invested, and to be able to, next year to say that really got us over $500,000 worth of advertising. Because by working together, we can compound our impact. The DMO also said, instead of just giving us a dollar amount in addition to the funding, why don't you, we will use our dollars to match others. We only got a couple of minutes, Rob, I'm sorry, yeah. I gave too much of a lecture, but why don't you tell us how you think this process is going to work?
Well, first off, it's been great. With the communication is opened up, the dialogue is done. It's got a lot of folks that have been just, probably in years past, have gone back to the well with some of the same things again. Started looking at different trades. It also allowed us to close up some things that we've been doing as the DMO and include others in that. So one of the things is through fulfillment. What better way to get the message out for events coming up is to attach it to our e-newsletter, our visitor guide and relocation guide send-offs. When people are asking those questions, we make them aware of the events that are going on. That becomes part of the DMO spin. At the same time, it allows us to craft some of our online and potentially in print enrichment to tie in with the events and expand it. I think I've met with just about everybody on that list a couple times, trying to formulate where we were going to be.
It was really fascinating at the end of the summit.
Yeah.
Actually, in this big room, City Council chambers, people started to huddle because they realized that we're just not going to do business the way we did before. It's tax dollars. They belong to the people, and we have an obligation to make sure they're invested most effectively. Fortunately, we have a destination marketing organization that is very interested in the science of all this. They're going to be able to help us measure what we achieve so that next year when we invest those dollars, we'll do a better job.
That's right.
We got to stop now, Rob.
Yeah.
You and I talk most days.
That's right.
We'll talk, I'm sure, later today, but we've got to end the show today. Thank you for joining us on Straight Talk with Billy Kay.